Hey everybody, it's Dan Labbe. Welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. It is our Browns-Packers preview pod. Run through what we've got coming for you, all the normal stuff. Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock are going to join me in the first segment, and we're going to go over the storylines of this game at Ford Field on Sunday afternoon. Then Lance Reisland is going to join me to give a scouting report on the Lions, and then Mary Kay and Ashley are going to rejoin me, and we will make our picks for Sunday's game. Couple quick things to promote, and this is something you got to know. Don't hit that fast forward button just yet. We've been going live on our YouTube channel at 8 o'clock, where we're recording our post-game podcast live, 8 o'clock Sunday nights. So our YouTube channel is Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. If you want to be involved in that live show, be in the chat with us, all that stuff, all you got to do, get subscribed to that channel, check out that channel, 8 o'clock Sunday night, and we go live with our post-game pod. So I really want to make sure you know we're doing that here. And just if you could do me a favor, if you're not subscribed to Orange and Brown Talk and Apple Podcasts on Spotify, if you could please just go get subscribed, leave us a 5-star review, all of that good stuff. Of course, we always appreciate that. Okay, enough from me. It is time for our preview edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, Browns at Lions. Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, our Browns-Lions preview edition of the podcast, getting you ready for the game Sunday in Detroit at Ford Field, 1 o'clock. The Browns' second road game of the season, coming off their first win, so trying to put together a little winning streak here against the NFC North. Starting this off, Dan Labbe, Mary Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock. Let's get to some storylines, what we're watching, whatever we want to talk about. I will mention the line on this game when I talked to Lance Reisland, who you're going to hear in the second segment earlier. It's up to 10 points on DraftKings and 9.5 on FanDuel. So I thought that was interesting that it moved like that. But let's get to it, Mary Kay. When you look at this game, what's the big storyline that you're watching here on Sunday at Ford Field?
I think more so than anything, I'm looking at what the Browns offense is going to be able to do against this Lions defense, because the Browns offense has got to score some points. The Lions have scored 90 points in the last 2 games. They have generated more than 900 yards in the last 2 games. And I think that's going to be the key. Somehow the Browns have got to find their offense. They have to find their footing. Joe Flacco has to play well. If he doesn't, he's getting dangerously close to losing his job to rookie Dylan Gabriel. So that's the big thing that I'm looking for in this game, is what can these guys do with some challenges at tackle, by the way, against Aiden Hutchinson and Muhammad and this really stout, aggressive, physical defense. What can these guys do? Because we know that even though the Browns have the number 1 defense in total yards allowed, we know that this Detroit Lions offense can score some points. So it's got to be, what can Joe and company do?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on the pod, and I think the phrase I used was it's like code red for this offense right now with what the Browns are doing. And that Packers game was really concerning to me from an offensive standpoint, just how it's been hard for this offense really since the Bengals game. You know, they controlled the ball really well against the Bengals, and they were able to control the clock. That's a really bad defense, but it was really hard against Baltimore. It was ridiculously hard against Green Bay. Now, Detroit is not Green Bay defensively, Ashley, but I just worry about what this offense has looked like so far. Maybe the running game can get going, but it's genuinely frightening to think about this offense if this turns into, and I don't think it will, if this turns into some kind of shootout indoors at Ford Field.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it will, because I think the Browns are so good at managing the time of possession and stuff, like knowing the kind of game they have to play. But I will say, yes, it's concerning how this offense has looked, but to your point, and we've talked about this, Dan, to me, it's more concerning how it looked against a bad Bengals defense and a Ravens defense that I think is going to age poorly. Yes, you're not going to win many games when you score 13, but the Green Bay Packers are another one of the elite defenses. So again, I do think the running game, the Browns running game, Quinshon Judkins has another week of practice. Tommy Rees today said he's only been here about 3 weeks. It feels like he's been here longer. He obviously has stayed in shape. He's progressing really nicely. So I think the run game is going to help alleviate some things. Like Mary Kay wrote about the other day, I think the Joe Flacco to Jerry Jeudy Express has to get going, that's some of your best hopes. But again, also, this is not really a new problem at this stage. It's the same problem in a slightly different package compared to last year. Again, this football team has not scored more than 20 points since that December 2nd loss to the Denver Broncos last season. We are in like an 8-game stretch or whatever it is of them scoring under 20 points. So I don't know that I'm more concerned by what happened in the Packers game, but just because I think I was already in code red with how things are.
So let's touch a little more on this part of it, Mary Kay, to what Ashley was saying. Tommy Rees, I did like that quote from him today, that Quinshon's only been here for 3 weeks. It feels like he's been here longer than that. When I went back and rewatched that game on whatever day, like Monday, I thought Quinshon looked awesome. Like the way he hits holes, he's very decisive. He's not patient like Nick Chubb was. There are a couple runs here and there, but I think this is how it is with every running back. A couple runs here and there, like, oh, did he miss this opening? Did he miss this crease? But when he makes a decision and he's like, I'm going to hit this hole, he hits it hard. And we've seen it result in some big runs. We've seen that big playability from him. If this offensive line, especially those tackles, can do some work in the run game and open some things up, that's going to help this offense a ton. Just that ability to, control the clock, control the football, get some explosives on the ground if they're not getting it in the passing game. I do think having Quinshon here for a second full game and kind of knowing what he is going to really help this offense in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it really will. And these guys have a really good run defense. But I still think that Quinshon should be able to make some yards against them. He fared pretty well against Green Bay's number 2 ranked run defense. And these are small sample sizes early in the season, but I still think he should be able to do that depending on how they set up their blocking schemes in this game. KT Leviston blocked really, really well. I think they need to find a way to use him, use maybe some jumbo formations and do some things to get the ground game going. So we'll have to see how that goes. But certainly I think that having Quinshon is going to help everybody. It's going to help the defense. It's going to help Joe Flacco even more because he's trying to get his footing, so to speak, in the passing game. And I just think that Quinshon is explosive, and he has the makings of a pretty good replacement for Nick Chubb over the years, it looks like.
Yeah, big shoes to fill, but he's certainly off to a good start as far as that is concerned. So, Ashley, what's your storyline? What are you watching in this game?
Yeah, let's go to the other side of the ball for the Browns, because I really think the other big story in this game is obviously the Browns defense against an explosive Lions offense. They're the number 3 offense in the league right now in terms of total yards, but specifically this Browns defense against the running part of the Lions offense, because I have the numbers in front of me. I cannot rattle them off like Mary Kay has done all week by memory, even though I feel like I should know them by now. So 224 yards last week, 218 of those yards came from their 2-headed monster of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Gibbs had 67 yards on 22 carries. Montgomery had 151 yards on 12 carries. They both had 2 touchdowns. An interesting wrinkle got thrown into this part of the matchup on Thursday when coordinators spoke, because John Morton, the Lions' first-year OC, Mary Kay and I listened to this press conference. He was heaping praise on Jim Schwartz, heaping praise on the Browns defense and how well they have played. And then in an answer, he said the sentence that I already know this Browns defense is going to use as bulletin board material for the next 48 hours. And it's that they haven't faced a running attack like ours. And I don't think he necessarily meant it, obviously, in a trash-talking way. We don't typically see that from coordinators, but we also know these Browns players will take anything they can get in terms of creating motivation. And I do also think it's an interesting statement, because the last 2 weeks, we've watched the Browns shut down Derrick Henry. We've watched them shut down Josh Jacobs in their win over the Packers. So, yeah, I don't think there's necessarily a direct comp in terms of a 2-headed monster, but I'm sure Browns players are going to be like, well, it's not exactly easy to deal with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson either. Gosh. So I just think those comments today, Mary Kay wrote about them, just add that interesting little wrinkle for a Browns team that truly has just been so good against the run, and currently the number one ranked running defense in football, both in total yards per game at 57.3 and in rushing yards per play at 2.29. Of course, this is also the number one ranked overall defense, but that run defense is a big part of it as well.
Yeah, I think there is some context to what he said, but I was actually surprised, like when I went and read it. Like you guys said, he was very complimentary of the defense, but I expected it. I guess I expected the quote to be sort of embedded a little more in the idea of like explaining what he meant, but he didn't really explain what he meant. And the reality is, when Jim Schwartz or whoever, Jacques Césaire, or whoever decides to pull this thing out and put it up on the whiteboard or on the monitor, decides to do that, they're not going to be explaining the context of what John Morton was saying, because I don't think he's wrong necessarily. As long as he's not saying they haven't faced one as good as us, because obviously, like you mentioned, Ashley, they've faced the Packers who can run the football. They've faced the Ravens who certainly can run the football and are as unique a running team as there is in the league. But they haven't faced a team that has like a Jahmyr Gibbs type back yet, or in kind of that Sonic and Knuckles, as they call it, type situation. So I guess he's not wrong, but Mary Kay, you know it. I know it. Sometimes I do think sometimes we play the result a little bit when it comes to trash talk, but these guys use it. They find ways to use it, and these coaches are searching for every angle and every way to kind of poke at their guys and get them motivated. And that quote's going to get used somewhere this week in Berea or in the hotel in Detroit or somewhere. That quote's going to get used.
It really is. And not only that, if you read some of the other quotes from John Morton, you know what? He is actually talking big in other ways as well. Another one of his quotes, he says, "Our guys, they're going to be ready. We're going to be ready for anything. I don't care who it is." And basically, he's kind of talking about Miles here, because he says, we take care of ourselves and stop 95, or at least control him. Can't let him wreck the game. Cannot. But to say we're going to be ready for anything and I don't care who it is, I think that, that's kind of a strong statement as well. And it's okay to talk big about yourself. But, this was no shrinking violet type of interview. He also said, "I've told you guys before, the personnel that we have, we can pretty much do anything we want. There's a lot of weapons." So he's proud of his offense. They've scored 90 points in the last 2 weeks, and they've produced over 900 yards in the last 2 weeks. So I don't think this is someone who is just randomly throwing out big, bold comments. I think he knew what he was doing. He's been around for a long time. And I think he's kind of, feeling very confident about what his team is going to be able to do. And it will not be lost on this Cleveland Browns defense.
Right. And isn't that, that's like this Lions, that's sort of how they are, right? They're very confident in themselves. They have that swagger that comes, I think, from Dan Campbell in a lot of ways. They're just I'm not surprised, I guess, that he's kind of talking like he's talking. He's trying to send that message to his team, heading into this week. Now we'll see if it backfires, because I think the Browns defense has a lot of that too. Like, they've got some swagger. They've got some, they've got something to them. So again, it just makes what was already the matchup of this game, the matchup of this game. And that is the Browns defense against this Lions offense. So this isn't exactly a vibes check, but to me, I'm thinking a little bit beyond just on the field. And so, look, we can sit here. The Browns beat the Packers. A win's a win. You don't complain about wins, right? But we can certainly look at that game and come up with reasons like, I saw a tweet this week that had the Packers just punted on that third down instead of throwing the ball, they probably win that game, right? But they didn't. They threw an interception. The Browns took advantage. They scored. I don't know how sustainable that is. This is the prove it week. Because, somebody asked me, like, is this, after that win against Green Bay, does it change your entire outlook on this season? And my answer was, we'll see. Like, okay, now you're going to go to Detroit, and this is your prove it week. Because we've seen this before from this football team where they get a dramatic win, they win a game like they do Sunday, and then they kind of turn around, and it's just sort of the same old thing. So that's really kind of what I'm keeping an eye on this week, is how do the Browns respond to this success from Sunday? They pulled the upset of the week against the Packers. They beat an undefeated football team. So do they turn this into something, or are we sitting there in Ford Field like, okay, this is kind of the team we thought they were? And I love that. That's one of the things I love about sports. That's one of the things I love about football, Mary Kay, is you get a chance now to go prove it. Like, you got everybody's attention on Sunday against the Packers. And now if you go to Detroit and you win that football game, people are really going to be talking about the Cleveland Browns like, hey, Pat McAfee's going to be saying more than just what he said on his show the other day. I won't repeat it here on this podcast. They'll be saying things like, hey, you know what? Maybe this Browns team is actually pretty good, not just not what Pat McAfee said in his show.
Yeah, and the Browns certainly feel that way about themselves. And even when you look back to our interview with Greg Newsome on Monday, he said, we're going to find a way to go out and win this game. And, that's kind of throwing down the gauntlet there a little bit too. These guys are very confident. When you have Myles Garrett, you can be that confident. And then when you have guys like Mason Graham playing the way that he's playing, and Carson Schlesinger and Denzel Ward, you can go out there and you can feel good about yourself. So even though the Ravens, who, by the way, have the 31st ranked pass defense, even though they gave up how many ever yards they did to the Lions, and they gave up 38 points and 224 yards rushing and all of that, it doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen with the Browns. And they certainly don't feel like that's going to happen with them. They feel good about themselves. And if you can shut down the Packers, it does. It gives you confidence. And they're tired of being just kind of the laughing stock of the NFL. They're really tired of it. They're tired of being 10-point dogs, 9.5-point dogs at home, and just nobody respecting them in any way, shape, or form. I think the Green Bay victory should have put them on the NFL map a little bit, but they want to keep that going. And they're going to be loaded for bear in this game. And another thing to consider is the fact that the Detroit Lions played a hard-fought football game just on Monday night. So they're coming into this game on a short field. On a short week. Yes, they're at home. It's going to be loud. It's going to be a hostile environment. They've got a head coach that I want to run through a wall for. So it's going to be very intense. It's almost going to be like a playoff atmosphere again. But these Browns feel good about themselves, especially defensively. And if they can keep that going and take the ball away and absolutely rattle Jared Goff into some mistakes, then they might be onto something here.
And there's something to be said about knowing how you want to play. And I think the Browns know how they want to play. And it might be frustrating at times, and it might feel like you're watching, I've said this, but it might feel like you're watching the Iowa Hawkeyes on Saturday. But they're going to find ways to win with field position, play great defense, punt the football, all of that stuff. Knowing who you are matters. So, Ashley, again, hey, it's prove it time now. Will this turn into a 2023-like run, or is it just going to be more of the same when they go up to Ford Field?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? And, when we make our picks here in a little bit, that's the battle internally for me this week is, am I going to we talk about it, get sucked in because you're here all week, you're around their energy and what they're saying, and they just pulled off an upset. Can I talk myself into picking the upset, or am I going to go with kind of the more logical numbers-based take? I think I know which way I'm going. But there are all these just interesting kind of wrinkles to this game. I mean, I think to Mary Kay's point, the short week thing is interesting because I think for a lot of fans, they maybe don't think about that part of it when you're talking about a Monday night game into a Sunday night game. They might be saying it's 24 hours. What's the difference? There's a lot of difference because during the week, these guys, every hour is essentially mapped out for them. And you have your off day Tuesday when you play on Monday still, and you're right back at it on Wednesday. And you have to immediately get focused for that next opponent. There's not that sort of wind down Monday that these guys are used to. I mean, I remember when Amari Cooper was here talking about even just the physical part of it, their bodies, losing that whole day for some of these guys is huge. And I saw Aiden Hutchinson, it looked like, talked a little bit about that with Detroit writers today when he talked. So I'm fascinated by that part of it, but it is again, we're in that rough first six game part of their schedule. I think if you want people to take you seriously, it's going to require a couple more wins, even though, look, that Packers one was a pretty good one, but I think people are still looking at this offense being what the heck? And four things had to go right for them in weird ways to pull off that upset, and still probably think this team is not really going anywhere. And I think that shifting this defense a little bit given how well we've seen them play and we've been around it, so we just pay attention to it more. But I do think to earn that recognition, you're going to have to steal a couple more games coming up here, including this one, and it will go a long way.
Okay, we'll take our first break here on the podcast, and then when we come back, Lance Reisland will give you his scouting report on the Lions, and then we will come back after that and make our picks for Sunday's game. Back on the Orange Brown Talk podcast, Browns Lions preview edition, and we welcome on, as we do every week, Lance Reisland to look ahead to the Detroit Lions. Lance, how are you?
What's going on, Dan? How are you today, buddy?
I'm doing well, getting ready for this game on Sunday, a really interesting matchup, and I think the most interesting part of it is you have this elite offense that has been humming, playing great the last two games against this elite defense that has been playing great all season, and I want to go back, I guess let's start here. To me, any case you're going to build for the Browns to win this game starts with Packers-Lions week 1. That's the one elite defense that the Lions have played. And I know they scored 13 points in that game. They scored 6 points in that game.
Mm-hmm.
The other 7 were garbage time. Was that just week 1 weirdness? Does this Lions offense look different the last 2 weeks? Have they been more creative? What do you attribute that to?
Well, I think, they have a new offensive coordinator. It takes a little bit, especially after Ben Johnson's really creative. So a lot of timing, rhythm, pace. So I think there was a little bit of that. But I also think, their offensive line dominates unless you have guys up front that can handle it. And that takes away, if you get handled up front, that takes away your linebacker play. That takes away your secondary play. If you just physically, talking about, like, for example, the Browns versus the Ravens. Browns didn't physically get handled. They made mistakes. And so I thought the Packers, I don't want to say opened the door to what could be successful against them. And obviously it's week 1 and things happen, obviously the weird week 1. However, the Packers defense physically can match up with the Lions, both up front and, at the second, third level. So, I think the Browns can have some success. I think the Browns defense is better than the Packers, especially up front. And so we'll see what happens. But, they're bigger, they're heavier. They struggled with some slant angles that they did, some movement skills, all the stuff that the Browns do. So it's a very similar, Halfley does a lot of the same thing Schwartz does with one gap penetration. So there's a lot to it that the Browns learned in that game. And I guarantee you they replicate a lot of it.
So let's kind of work our way front to back here. We know that Lions offensive line rebuilt a little bit on the inside. It seems like if there is an area of weakness, that might be it. How do you see that matchup between the Browns front and the Lions front?
I think Glasgow's a good player. The Ratledge kid is he's first of all, he's got the best mullet in the NFL. That's the first thing. Second, but he's a mauler. These guys up front, in my opinion, match Dan Campbell's personality. They really are outstanding run blockers. Now, the thing that happens if you could take away the run, it's very similar to what the Browns are, right? They establish that identity, and they're really good at it, kind of like the Browns were from 21 to 23, in that range, 20 to 23. So they marry the run with the pass. But if you get them in true pass situations, they're just okay. They're solid. Even Penny Sewell, who I think is one of the best offensive linemen, not just tackles, but best offensive linemen. All offensive linemen, if it's a true pass situation and they know it's coming and that guy's in a wide 5 or whatever, wide 3, it just makes it really tough on an offensive lineman. So that's why they really work on marrying the run with the pass. I think inside is where the Browns really have an advantage. If you talk about Ratledge and you talk about Mahogany, I believe his name is. Yeah, Mahogany. They're solid. Glasgow's solid, but they're nothing. Their tackles are really good, but Decker's a little bit banged up with the shoulder. And then Sewell obviously is next level. But the offensive line, really, really, really good run blockers, very solid, but not elite pass blockers.
John Morton today, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, you mentioned first-year offensive coordinator, he said he was asked about the Browns' run defense, and one of the things he said was they haven't seen a run game like ours yet. There's a little more context to that. I know the quote standing on its own kind of stood out, but I don't think he's wrong. Like, I mean, obviously they've seen good run. He didn't say they've just seen bad run games. He just said they haven't seen one like ours. I mean, look, I think they call themselves Sonic and Knuckles, right? So you got Jahmyr Gibbs, you got David Montgomery. We saw Montgomery have that big game on Monday night. Gibbs is kind of a do-it-all kind of back. I think this is an interesting matchup, that Browns run defense against that two-headed monster that the Lions have.
Well, there's two things. One is the Browns held Chase Brown, Lamar Jackson, Eric Henry, Josh Jacobs to 109 yards on 50 carries. So these guys are good. They're very good, but the Browns have seen this. That backfield is not as good. It's different, but it's not as good as the Ravens backfield. And the offensive lines are similar. Obviously, I think Sewell kind of puts the Lions offensive line kind of in the same category, but it's more their mentality and when he says, one of the things I think they do really well as I watch the film over and over is they do a great job with their shifts with the tight ends. And what they end up doing is they end up getting some bubbles because the strong side now becomes the weak side and vice versa. And they do it really well. They run wide zone. He's also very good, like Ben Johnson, in terms of getting lots of different formations to create the defensive front they want. The problem is with the Browns, they don't care. And Jim Schwartz is one of the few guys in the NFL. He does not allow that to dictate what he does. So many defenses change when there's trades and motions, things like that. That will not happen with Jim Schwartz. So that's kind of a good thing. They have not seen a run game like this, but it's more about the scheme. They're very multiple, a lot of wide zone. They run traps. They run whams. They try to get behind Penei Sewell. They run, like I said, they have two really good backs. They marry the run with the pass, et cetera, et cetera. So I think when it says we haven't seen a run game like this, it's because I don't think there's been a pass game with the solid run game. You had the Bengals who could really throw it, the Ravens who could run it and throw it. But this is a really power run game with a true drop back guy who can really sling it across the field as well.
All right, so let's talk about that passing game. Jared Goff, we've seen him really turn into an elite quarterback. He's a guy that has throughout his career had issues when you can put pressure on him. Those splits have always been different. I think that gap has closed a little, but it still exists. So he's a guy that can struggle a little bit under pressure like every quarterback, but he's got some weapons. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Browns fans, don't go back and look at that draft. Just don't do it. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, who I think is really good. His numbers have come down a little bit since his rookie year, but I think he's a really good tight end. The two running backs, of course, and Gibbs is good out of the backfield. So many weapons. They use them in so many different ways. Here's the simplest way to ask this. Just how good is this passing attack?
It's really good. And the reason why, because you said the versatility. So all the receivers, Williams not as much, but St. Brown is really special because his ability to play the slot and outside. And they do a good job of finding the matchups they want. And, for the Browns, they have to make sure that they're not getting in a bad matchup with Brown, because unfortunately and I love this about Schwartz, but he doesn't back down and he has elite confidence in his guys. But you don't want St. Brown matched up on Miles Harden without help over top. So I think they got to give him help over top, especially if they're going to go with him in the slot a bunch, which I think Detroit's going to do because they're going to try to get rid of the ball quickly. The Browns' best option is A and B gap pressure. Now, he's such a rhythm passer. One thing that really plays into the Browns' hand is that off that play action, he'll hold it sometimes. And he likes to be in rhythm, 3, 5, 7 off play action, but he's not a guy who moves his feet very well. And when you say he's not very good, comparatively speaking, there's a big difference. If you can get him off his spot, reset, all quarterbacks are, but he's completing almost 78% of his passes. And if you can get him off his spot, it's a big difference. And so I think Malik Collins and Mason Graham are huge against those guards who aren't nearly as good as the tackles.
Let's move to the other side. This Lions deal. I think a lot of people have a good feel for this Lions offense. The Lions defense, obviously we know about Aiden Hutchinson. Now they're missing Marcus Davenport. He just got put on IR, so he didn't play Monday night. But I know Troy Aikman talked a lot about this, I think, in that Monday Night Football game. They'll play some man coverage. They'll leave those guys in man, which is something that Jim Schwartz will do too. Describe this defense to me. What's the biggest thing Browns fans need to know about it?
Well, Aiden Hutchinson is their guy they like to really turn loose. So he has some freedom out there at the end. Him and Muhammad are really good. Muhammad's got 3.5 sacks. Aiden Hutchinson's got 2, but Hutchinson gets a lot of the doubles and a lot of the chips. The Browns are really going to have to help on both of those guys. They got DJ Reader inside, and they got Tyleek Williams, who, if you remember, I had him just behind Mason Graham going into the draft. Really elite guys. Both him and Reader are both 330. So those guys don't get tons of pressure inside. Those guys are run stoppers. So it's kind of an old school defense where they got some big guys inside who kind of two gap. They do some penetrating, very multiple, but they're really trying to get pressure on the outside with Muhammad and Aiden Hutchinson. Arnold's a very good corner, and they will put him out there, and they will leave him by himself. He'll go to the best guy. I think Joseph's a guy you can beat, and I think obviously I think Branch is an elite player, but he's in a guy who's aggressive, double moves, things like that. The problem is for the Browns is they don't have elite receivers. Once again, a struggling Browns offense. I like the matchups with them and Jack Campbell. He's a stud between tackle to tackle, but he struggles in space. So, there are some openings for this Browns defense. It'll be tough sledding with those 330-pound guys inside and Jack Campbell and Anzalone at the backer. He runs real well. It's hard to run a ball against these guys. I think the best matchup is get these backs and get these tight ends in the middle of the field against these linebackers and safeties, especially Jack Campbell.
Are they going to be able to run the ball against this team? Because obviously they got that run game going, and we know this passing game has been such a struggle. Are they going to be able to run the ball in this game?
Well, they're going to have – I think what they got to do is I think they got to run at Muhammad, and I think that, DJ Reader's a guy – Tyreek Williams is a load in there. He's just like Mason Graham. He's really, really tough, good with hands, quick. But I think you can run right at Muhammad. He's a pass rushing guy. He's a bigger guy. He's 250, but I think you can run right at him. The guy that makes it really tough is Jack Campbell. He's like having a defensive. He's 250 pounds, 6'5", 250 at the backer. So he's especially good from tackle to tackle. Now I think they have to run the ball some, but I think they have to go with a little bit. They can't keep beating their head down into the sand if it doesn't work. Use some swing passes, loosen them up, try to loosen the box a little bit, then run the ball. So it might be a game where they come out throwing a little bit just to try to loosen up, try to spread them out a little bit, try to get a 5- and 6-man box. The thing that you can do with Jack Campbell, though, is you can definitely get to him. He's a guy who's going to be physical, but he's not a guy who's going to duck, like JOK, who's going to be skinny and beat you with juke moves and things like that. He's a guy who's thrive in contact. So he'll, if he runs into Teller will block him. And so that's what they got to hope is that he tries to be physical, because I think the Browns guards will be physical with him as well. It'll be tough sledding, but they're going to have to do that so they can set up some play action.
I want to ask you one more thing about this Lions team, because obviously we know, Dan Campbell has been there a little while now, and there's a certain way they play, right? And obviously one of those things that's really obvious for everyone to see is their willingness to be aggressive on fourth down, right? They just know it's fourth down. They're not looking at the sideline, waiting 10 seconds for a decision, and then coming up to the line and the play clock's running out. They know what they're going to do. And I think that speaks to this idea of identity, right? Like this team knows who they are, and they know that their coach believes in them. They know that if they don't pick up that third down, they're going to go for it, whatever it is, right? This is Detroit Lions football. I think the Browns are trying to find that a little bit. How much does that matter to a team that here we are? I can't remember. I don't know how many years Dan Campbell is in off the top of my head. I don't remember, but the Lions know who they are, that this is Detroit Lions football. This is how we're going to play. It kind of goes back to the run game thing, right? Like, I don't care if it's working. We're going to keep running the football because that's who we are. How much difference does that make on a Sunday?
It's huge because of two things, and I truly believe this. First of all, your identity, but more importantly, you can fix your identity. And I've said that before with Kevin Stefanski going back to his run game. Whether we like the run game or not, at least he can fix it or have some opinions how to fix it, right? And that's what the Lions have. So the Lions have this identity. You go back and you read some articles. Reading this week on how they probably hit as much as during camp than anybody in football. They have the pads on as much as possible. They really are kind of old school, and they've kind of bought into what he is, what he is selling. A guy like Jack Campbell, he's a guy who's vulnerable in the pass game, but he's a good football player. And that's what he likes, good football players. He's not really into measurements and all the combine stuff. That's what Jack Campbell is. Jack Campbell, people thought he was slow, but he's a good football player. And that's who they go after, and that's who they like. But when on both sides of the ball, it helps because you know how you're going to practice. You know what plays you're going to run. You know what plays you're going to run, whether they're working or not, because that's who you are and that's what he believes in. And then you kind of buy into it. And then you're like, we got to make this work. And then you work harder in practice. And we've all been there as offense coordinator. They're not grab bagging for anything. They're running their stuff. This is going to be a really intriguing offense. Game to watch between their offense and the Browns defense. I think it comes down to the other side of the ball, because I think the Lions will make some plays on offense, but I think the Browns defense will have some success against them. It's just, can the Browns the Browns offense have some success? That's what it comes down to.
Okay. The line on this game has moved. I looked it up here while we were talking. It was 8.5 to open. It's now 9.5 on FanDuel and 10 on DraftKings, or maybe it's the other way around. Whatever it is, it's moved on both of those books from the 8.5 it was. So that's interesting. Here it is, Lance. Make your pick.
All right, so I'm going to say this. At the Browns offense, I'm assuming until they show us that they can move the ball and be a part of the three phases, I'm going to go with the Lions. However, they're going to cover. I really think they're going to cover. I think the Lions win 17-13, and I think it's a really close game. I do think the Lions offense is really good. But I really, and you and I have been saying this way before the season starts, I really believe this front seven is as good as it gets. They are disruptive, and the more film I watch, they're going to give the Lions some fits. Get a turnover, get a pick six. One of those things got to happen, I think. Good special teams. But this will not be a blowout. And if it is, I think it comes down to mistakes. I don't think the Lions physically handle the Browns. I'd be shocked. If that happens, then the Lions might be Super Bowl favorites. But I got the Lions 17-13, and I think it really comes down to the Browns got to show us. And playing away in the NFL just seems really, really hard. It just seems like it's really hard to win on the road in the NFL.
That place is sneaky loud, too. Very, very loud place, especially now that the Lions are good. Okay, that will do it for this segment. We're going to take a break here on our preview podcast. When we come back, Mary Kay and Ashley will rejoin me, and we will make our picks for Sunday's game in Detroit. Lance, thanks for the time.
Absolutely.
Hey, Dan back here. Appreciate that scouting report from Lance. Before we get to our picks for the game, I like to give you guys some props that I like, and I got to tell you, just so you know, I have no feel for this football game right now as far as what I would get. I am feeling good about that Quinshon Judkins 12-plus carries last week. That was a good find, so sometimes if you dig through, you can find something. But as far as this game is concerned, I hate the spread. It's like DraftKings has it at 10. The Lions favored by 10. FanDuel had it at 9.5. This Browns defense is too good. I just don't want to bet against this Browns defense. And that's why I hate the totals too. The total on this game is 44.5. I haven't even looked at too much at the team totals. There is one I'm going to throw out there. But the totals with this team are really difficult to get a read on. There's nothing I really love in this game, if I'm being completely honest with you as I looked through, but I'll give you a couple I'm keeping an eye on. Jared Goff under 227.5 passing yards. The Browns have only allowed one 200-yard passer this season. That was Lamar Jackson, and he got to 225. Now that's a bet against this Lions passing offense, which is scary, but against this Browns defense, maybe that's a chance worth taking. So Goff under 227.5 points. That's kind of an interesting one. I'm looking at some receiving over-unders. Jerry Jeudy is at 48.5 right now. So much of the storyline this week has been Joe and Jerry getting on the same page. So maybe you take that over 48.5. Count on Jerry to get 50 receiving yards. It's been very difficult for him to do. So again, be careful with that. As far as receptions go, you can get, I'm looking here, there aren't all great ones that I love. It's just as far as total receptions even. David Njoku 5+ is plus 117. So if he has 5 or more catches, maybe that's something worth looking at. If you're looking at Jeudy, do they force feed him the ball a little bit so you can get Jeudy 5+ catches at plus 126? I guess that would be interesting. And then you look at some of the point bands, which is where you're basically saying, is a team going to end up scoring between this number and this number? The Browns between 11 and 20 points is plus 115. That, of course, is where they've been all season long. The Lions, you can't even get between 11 and 20 points right now, but you can get between 21 and 30 at plus 145. Maybe one of those is worth taking a look at. But I don't know. There's not a lot I love in this game. So those are a few just off the top of my head that I would consider. Personally, I think I'm staying away from this football game. We got lucky with that Judkins one last week. I don't think it's going to happen again. Anyway, as of right now, staying away from this one. But those are some ideas you can look at if you're thinking about it. Okay, we're going to make our picks for the game coming up after this. Back on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Thanks to Lance Reisland for that scouting report on the Lions. And now it is time for us to make our picks. So I mentioned this off the top. This line has moved pretty dramatically. The Lions I'll actually just pull it up here real quick. It was 8.5 when it opened. on DraftKings right now, the Lions are 10-point favorites. So the line has moved kind of the opposite way here. I guess, look, I'll go first. Then Ashley, you can go. Mary Kay, you can bring us home. That's how we'll do it. There is a part of me that would love to pick an upset here. And this is the first week when I'm kind of allowing myself to think maybe the Browns could pull this upset. Like maybe this defense is that good. We've seen it for 3 weeks now. This pass rush is that good. Jared Goff has at times struggled against pressure. I think he's gotten better, but he still struggles against pressure sometimes. The Lions, I don't think the Lions have seen, well, they kind of have seen a front like this. And guess how they did against that front? They scored 6 points. They got a touchdown in garbage time to make it 13. But like they didn't have very much success against the best defense they played. So, and then I thought Grant Delpit said something interesting today. And this is something that we've talked about on this pod, I think with you guys a little bit, I know with Lance, sort of this proof of concept. Like the Browns won that game Sunday, and that sort of showed them, like, if you play this way, if you keep playing great defense, if you keep protecting the football, if you force some turnovers, you can win a game. So I think they have that going for them too. Like they've seen this can work. So I'm not going to pick the Lions to cover this game. I think it's impossible at this point. If the line is double digits, I don't know how you can look at this Browns defense and be like, somebody's going to beat them by double digits. I know it happened with the Ravens, but weird stuff happened in that game. So I think the Lions are going to win. I don't think they're going to score a ton of points. Unfortunately, I don't think the Browns are going to score a ton of points either. And that's what gives me pause, is just this offense. It's that old, I got to see it thing that I think you talked about when you made your pick last week, Ashley. Like, I got to see it. So I'm going to take the Lions to win this game. I think it's going to be low-ish scoring. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to take Detroit 21-15. Ashley, what do you have?
So it's funny because I'm sitting here and I think this is the first time ever that you were talking and I legitimately changed my pick. Like I legitimately just changed my pick, and I'm gonna be insane.
It's because I'm always such a Browns cheerleader on this thing.
No, but listen. So I came into this thinking, oh, well, I'm going to pick the Lions and I'm going to pick them to, like, my initial thought was 28-16. And I'm just not feeling that, okay? And I think maybe I have just been suckered in because I watched the Packers game. We've written so much about what went right. But here's what I keep coming back to. And these are things truly I've been thinking about all week, and I feel like it makes sense for me to trade my pick. Number one, to your point, Dan, I do think this defense is legit. And I do think while the Browns maybe haven't faced a rushing attack quite like the Lions offense hasn't faced a defensive front quite like the Cleveland Browns, especially in terms of interior pressure. So I think I'm with you, and I think it's going to be low scoring, which makes me think the Browns do have a bit more of a chance than people are going to give them. And look, like the Lions players are getting asked about trap game this, trap game that, short week this, short week that. It's coupled. That's another factor in this game. The Lions have a short week. They're coming off this big Monday night win. Could they have a little bit of a win hangover? I can see the world in which there is an upset in this game. So I'm going to pick that upset. I still think this Browns offense needs to show me something. I don't think it's going to look perfect. I do think it's going to be low scoring. I think the Browns are going to get either a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown. I think they're really going to roll after that blocked kick and after the Grant Delpit interception. Here's the other thing, and I brought this up earlier in the week. Like, I think if it's a close game, there's a chance that Dan Campbell's aggressiveness is not a benefit for the Detroit Lions. There's a chance, I think, that something procedural happens that Kevin Stefanski and these guys have down, and again, maybe that is not a benefit to the Lions. So, all that being said, and I reserve the right to change my mind for our video pick on Friday, I am picking the Cleveland Browns in this game 18-16. I still don't think they're going to score more than 20 points. I still need them to show it to me.
Okay, there we go. An upset pick from Ashley. All right, Mary Kay, I guess you're our tiebreaker of sorts here. Where are you going with this game?
I still think that it's probably going to be hard for this offense to get rolling, especially with the tackle situation going on right now. I think that will loom large in this game. And I think when you have Aiden Hutchinson and Muhammad out there. They're going to be coming after Joe. They're really going to be trying to hit him hard like he was hit by the Green Bay Packers. They're going to be trying to sack him. They're coming off a game in which they sacked the Baltimore Ravens. They sacked Lamar Jackson 7 times. So I do think that that's going to be their number one goal, is to get to Joe and to get him on the ground and to really get him off of his game, and also to force him to fumble, to separate him from the football. That's what they're going to be trying to do. And because of the tackle situation being a little bit shaky right now, I just don't think I can pick the Browns to win this game. I think the defense is going to play well. I don't think that they're going to rush for 224 yards in this game. I think the run defense is going to show up in this game. But I do think that it's going to be hard to win this game unless you have some offense. And they didn't score for 56 minutes last week. So I am picking the Lions to win this game 27-17.
No victory laps, Ashley. No victory laps if you're right. Not going to let it happen.
That's fine. I won't take one. But Dan, before we go, we have to give you a pre-victory lap,
God.
though, because we talked about this in the media room, and Mary Kay and I want you to tell our listeners what you are doing on Saturday before we all cover this football game.
All right. Well, I am running the Akron Marathon on Saturday. It's not my first marathon, so I've done it before. I ran Cleveland a few times. But this is the first time I've run Akron, which I've always wanted to run. But as a football writer, it's very hard during the summer to fit training in. Obviously, the Browns' schedule plays a big role in this. If I have to get on a plane and go to like Las Vegas or something, that there's no way I could do that. So the schedule worked out. It's a drive to Detroit. I can leave whenever I want to on Saturday. So like if I'm half dead at 1:00, I can wait to leave till like 8 or 9. So that's good. And for whatever reason, the Browns training camp schedule, I was just able to make it work. You know, when my long runs were, when I had my really long runs, it was a week where they either played like I wasn't like on a trip or something, whatever. All of this is details people don't need to know.
Well, we didn't have
But
the
I was
Greenbrier this year, so that
right,
helped.
No Greenbrier, that helped, obviously. So I was able to get all my training in, and the Browns schedule worked out, and I'm a very dumb person. So I am running the Akron Marathon on Saturday, and then I'm going to get in my car and drive to Detroit and maybe be at dinner with you guys. We'll see if I'm still alive or mobile. I'm going to walk around a stadium on Sunday, which we were talking to Scott Petrak. He's actually run a marathon before, so he knows the post-marathon pain. It's really hard to like walk up steps and stuff that next day. So getting around a stadium is just going to be a delight. My parking
You have elevators.
Yeah, my parking is like 3/4 of a mile away from the stadium. So what I'm getting at here is this whole weekend is going to be a disaster for me. And for those of you that listen to the pods and watch our videos, you're going to get to see it. You're going to get to see me just be an absolute disaster in some way, shape, or form, I'm sure. So that's what I got going this weekend.
Congrats to you, Dan. We're pulling for you, man.
We are.
We'll
and
see
we'll
what
see
happens.
you at the barbecue, at our barbecue dinner in Detroit, hopefully. Hopefully you make it there in time and can walk into the restaurant.
Slo's barbecue. The Guardians writers will be so jealous of us. I know they got to eat there last week.
They will.
They'll be so jealous of us. So will Chris Fedor. Okay. Well, that will do it for this edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. If you're not subscribed on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, get subscribed. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com is what you have to search there to get subscribed and check out some of our pods, our stand-ups, a bunch of sports for CLE, all sorts of stuff there. On our YouTube channel. And of course, Football Insider, cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page to get involved with that. If I live to talk about it, we'll be talking about the game live on our YouTube channel, 8:00 p.m. on Sunday night before we hit the road to get back home after that game. So whatever happens, again, get to that YouTube, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. For Lance Reisland, for Mary Kay Cabot, for Ashley Bastock, I'm Dan Labbe. Thanks for listening, everybody.